Hi everyone, it's Teresa with Crafty with Teresa. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we have so much to cover. I had such a time trying to create this layout, but in the end, I absolutely love it. In May, I created a scrapbook layout showcasing my granddaughter getting an award for her participation in a Destination Imagination event. Well, I don't always show these, but today I'll show you the companion page that I created to go along with it. This design was inspired from a sketch that is in the Stampin'Up Catalog on, I believe it's page 24. The sketch was a starting point for me, but I did have to change it up a bit so it would work with how I needed to present it in my page. Now we'll be doing a lot of DIYing today, we'll call it. You'll see some challenges I faced along the way. These were not my finest moments, but I'll show you all the ways I fixed them because that's what we crafters do. Now, enough of my chatting, let's get to crafting. I have pictures of my grandchildren that are with their backs to us, and then we had them turn around. We thought that would be cute. So, I also thought, why don't we go ahead and turn that photo into a photo flip-flap? Well, my challenge was I didn't have any flip-flap photo holders on hand. So before we go too much further, we're going to DIY and make our own, or give it our best shot. Now, is it perfect? It is not, but it will be fine for now. And if I do get some flip-flaps, then I have no worries. I just swap them out, and you'll see how I made a way to do that in just a second. So I have 5.5 by 7.5 clear envelopes, and they're normally for 5 by 7 cards. But I repurpose these all the time because I don't make a lot of 5 by 7 cards. Now I've got a photo that I believe I started with 4 by 6, and I have since cut it down just a bit because I've been playing around with it for a while. And another reason I cut it down was because going along with the layout design, I needed more room for other things. Like in that design, it was squares, but you'll see that I created my own design instead of the squares that fit perfectly with this layout. So I'll grab my cutter and I'll take those envelopes and I'm going to cut them down. I'm more of a wing it person, so I don't measure a lot. So I actually just usually place the picture up on top or maybe inside of this clear envelope where I want it, and I leave about 1/4 of an inch around each of the two sides in this particular case. So for you, those who might want to recreate this, I ended up cutting the envelope down to 4 by 5 3/4, and then I cut my picture down to 3 3/4 by 5.5. I added some double-sided tape, and I suggest getting some pretty strong double-sided tape. On the back side of the photo, I added some removable tape because of the fact that I may end up taking these in and out a few times. Plus, I want them to stay pretty flat so that I can cut around them in my cutter. Now, I just remove the tape and press it flat from one side to the other. Now, I know that's not pretty for some folks, and you might have a problem with that. So trust me, I'm a perfectionist too, so it bothers me at times, but let me show you what I did to have less of that tape showing. Hindsight, I wish I had put a little white border on there. It may have been less obvious, but maybe I'll do that next time. So I cut it down as close to that pick as possible, and you can see in the end, once I cut this down, that you can barely see that tape. Now, it'll still hold well, I promise, and I can live with that. Because if my budget doesn't allow me to get those flip-flaps right away, I know my granddaughter will still get a kick out of this layout, and she'll love looking at it in her photo album. So now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to go ahead and kind of match the angle of the one that's already there for me. I do end up cutting it back and forth a few times, but eventually I ended up cutting it down just a bit because it would be easier to match up the photo flip flaps if I replace them. Now that we have our DIY photo flip flap holder, let's think through the design. I see that there are 3 photos at least. There are some squares. The title is 2 inches long, and there are some circles, but in our case, we're going to swap that out and use stars. So let's move into creating those items. So like I said, we're going to replace those circles with stars because this is an award. So my little granddaughter's a star, so she has to have stars on her companion page. So here's another make your own kind of tip. A lot of times I just grab a white piece of cardstock and I'll use my red ink. I grab a blending tool and then I just ink blend it till I get the color I like and use that for my stars. Now I grabbed a bunch of stars that are in a line from, I believe it's the Link Together dies, and they're perfect because they're small and they're tiny and they just add that little bit of extra. So that's what I'll use. I'll die cut them and I'll have those ready to go. Then you see I also have the title is going to go on this frame. This is also from Link Together, and I'll end up doing the same thing with that. I will ink blend onto that also to kind of tie in that red color. There's not a lot of red in this companion page, but there is in the first page, so I'm trying to bring it in just a bit. Now here's where you start to see some of what I'll call my challenges. I glued down some things before I realized I needed a few more cuts in there. So as we go along, we'll correct them. Oh no. Oh goodness. One of the things I realized is that green needs to be a little smaller and needs to have a white frame around it. But again, so does the yellow crushed curry. It needs a little bit of a white frame around it also. But I had already cut my white paper, so now I need to come up with a frame. So rather than cut a whole new piece of paper, I used some of the strips that I had, and these are very small. They're 1/4-inch strips, and I just started placing those around that frame. And I only truly need 3 sides covered because of the design. You're going to see that most of the other side is going to be covered with the squares. Hindsight, I wish I'd have made the squares smaller, but you'll see it's fine. It works out just fine. Now I'm kind of placing those squares right there because I want to see about where I want that to land. And of course I have some additional strips, and what I'll do is once I place those squares, I will look at the pieces in between to add the white strip to. And I'll double check this, but I believe I put the makeshift strips, we'll call it. I believe I put them at 3.5 to 4.5 and 6.5 to 7.5 here. And I just kind of inserted them underneath those squares. Again, just DIYing as I go. That's kind of my thing. So once you see that, you'll see that it worked out perfectly, and you would never know unless someone told you. And when you make this design, you can make those things happen any which way you want, but I'm just trying to show you some options here. Now this is kind of a stretch, but it just fits so well with this layout. I decided to replace a lot of those squares with my own little design. Instead of some of the squares, I created some flags and I will have a cute little turtle laying on his back holding them. But in order to do that, I needed to create what would be the flags. So I took the stamp and die set. That was the Totally Awesome stamp and die set. And it says, I hope your birthday is totally awesome. But I only needed a piece of that. I wanted the statement to say totally awesome because it fits this layout so well. Let me show you what I did. Now you could just cut the stamp set. Right now I don't know how I feel about that because I do like the phrase, I hope your birthday is totally awesome. So I came up with another idea. I've done this in videos before, but I wanted to show it again. I'm going to take the stamp, put some black ink on it, and then just wipe off anything that I do not need. In this case, I hope your birthday is. And I'll keep the words totally awesome. I'll stamp that on a piece of white cardstock and I'll cut it into little strips because really that's all I need. Now if I make a mistake, I wanted to show you an option. You can grab your little journaling pen, and what I do when I need something this small, I'll lightly place little dots and then I'll just connect those dots. To me, that's easier. Next, we'll create the flags. I basically just created arrows on the end of each of the strips of that designer series paper. I'll just angle cut the end off with some long blade scissors and just match that to the other side. Now I created 3 of them. I'll add the word to it, and then we'll create a little flagpole for it. By the way, this is just done with scraps. The leftover scrap that I had was, I believe it was pecan pie cardstock. And these scraps that I'm using are basically scraps from leftover cards and scrapbook layouts of that designer series paper. Once I create the flags, I will add it to the green turtle shell that's laying down. I just love that little turtle. He looks like he's like dee-dah, dee-dah, having a great day. And so anyway, I will add that to his little hand so he looks like he's holding that up. We'll finish up that piece. Now here's another example of where you just take your ink blending and you just want a little color on your title. So I'm going to add just a little bit more red to that white cardstock frame and then just grab the statement that I want to place on it, which in this case came from, I believe it's documenting the day. Now I did make a few adjustments to make that title. It was much easier for me to wipe off the larger A in the title. So that's what I did. Now, when I create the second line of that one title, all I have to do is stamp the words perfect. I can use that whole stamp, which is much easier for me. Now I did take one extra step here. I actually added a piece of removable tape on the stamp covering up the A. I still have some photos to add, but I hope to get those done before she gets here. I wanted to make sure at this point that I didn't get any black onto this sentiment frame. So I'm ready to finish this layout and I'm trying really quickly to get it done because my granddaughter's coming over to my house in the next day or so and I want to make sure I'm pretty ready. Now back to the layout. I grabbed a piece of that pecan pie cardstock and this is where you'll see I'm building that flagpole. I'll go ahead and work on the second part of that sentiment, which is the word day. Again, didn't show this here, but I actually did some red ink blending there also. Again, I'm trying to bring some of that red in from the other page. Now, a couple of things as I start to finish this up. First of all, I decided I wanted that turtle to be popped up, so I grabbed a block and I laid the little flagpole that I created onto the block. Now I'll just grab some dimension and put it on the back of that turtle and pop him up, and then I'll slide that little flagpole underneath him. I've now added the rest of the sentiment, which is the word day. So it will say, "Oh, what a perfect day." Next, I'll grab a lot of those little stars that we die cut, and I'll start adding them around the corners of that frame. I like the idea of those stars circling that title. And then I went down to the very bottom and I added a couple of stars down there as well. One thing I did want to note here is the DIY flip flap that I created is actually put on with double-sided tape because I'm still on the fence about whether or not I'm going to purchase some more of the photo flip flaps, but it'll be fine. I can quickly take it off and add the photos into the new flip flap and just place it right over the top of where I had originally placed it. Now, it won't be an exact size because we created our own, but it's okay. I left enough room and space so that it will look just fine. Now, if you've stuck with me all the way to the end and you liked what you saw, please hit that subscribe button and the notification button so you can see the new videos as they come in. And like and comment. It helps YouTube to notice me, and it also helps me to know what you'd like to see in the future. I do have some coming soon items. I have a couple of cards that I'm working on. I have a ton of birthdays in July and August, so I'll be busy with those. I have another couple of scrapbook layouts coming out soon with a designer series paper pack that I got recently. I believe it's called Sips and Cheers. But at any rate, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. And until next time, have a great day.